Okay, so this is the third lesson. Lesson highlights still the same, right? So I'm not touching on that. Just to add on to the lesson highlights, for this lesson, I thought since it's a third lesson, assuming students have done the first two or even like, let's say one. Okay, so for this lesson, I would actually like them to plan and elaborate independently. Okay, and then something else, a new structure that they're learning for this lesson would be the P structure. I'm going to show you how I will conduct the lesson. So basically, you will not find this in the shared prep yet, okay? And I'll be jumping around, so at any point you need me to slow down or whatever, just let me know. Okay, so this topic here is on performance and the arts, all right? Okay, so just now, Vani mentioned that, we want to get kids to be aware of the differences, right? Plan, response, spoken interaction. So you can use this page to actually talk about it. Alternatively, you can use the document that Vani shared earlier to just highlight to the kids the differences. Then after that, I will go here. Okay, so this is the question page. 3 questions. Okay, so we want to unpack each question, so discuss it with the students. All right, so actually I've unpacked it here. All right, so when you look at the lesson prep, you can actually see like, okay, so for example, people prefer to watch a performance live. Okay, so then you can ask kids, okay, what does watching live mean, right? So you are actually at a venue, you're watching it with a crowd, right? The crowd like the same show, the same concert, whatever it is, okay? And what does it mean to watch a performance virtually? Like, is it a pre-recorded performance? Is it a live stream, right? You're watching it at the comfort of your own home, okay? And for question 1, you can even ask kids like, okay, so any of you have any personal experience? Because I think COVID, I'm not sure if they would have watched certain performances virtually, like even like, some like, if they attend church, like even church services were online, right? So that could be something they could actually talk about. So you do that for each question, and then for each question, you can actually talk about what structure they could use. So if they have attended previous lessons, I think they are familiar with the SCARE structure, okay? But for question 1, we will be using the P structure. So why? It's because for that question, they can actually use their personal experiences, okay? So P's is where when students are able to explain using their own personal experiences, we want to use P's. Okay, so after I've gone through questions, then what I would do is I will go to the key vocab. Okay, something about the word arts, right? Sometimes kids may not know the difference between art, the arts, okay? So you want to explain that. Like if you look at question 3, right? Okay, let me go back to question 3. It says, some people believe that studying art at school. So to kids, like art, oh, it's drawing, right? Because that's what they learn in school. But actually, no, right? So like in uni, you are offered like fine arts, and then there's media arts. So these are things that they may not be aware of, and we want them to be aware of it, okay? So that will be the key vocab part. In terms of quotes, I think Zam also mentioned it earlier. It can either be used in the intro to hook your listener or in the ending. Yeah? Okay, so actually, when I looked at the quotes, I felt that the second one by Charlie Chaplin is quite appropriate for question 1, where it's like, whether a live performance versus virtual performance. Okay, so after we do key vocab, this would be my flow in terms of attempting the questions. Okay, so I would do Q1, Q3, then Q2. Okay, so like Vani mentioned, sometimes we may not be able to finish it in class. So why Q2 is the last one is because actually for Q2, they can refer to the articles to get some ideas. Q1 and Q3, there's a little bit of activity and discussion going on. Something I like to do, if you have time that you can implement in your lessons, is I like to do a before and after thing. So sometimes I say, okay, so question 1, okay, there's a question, right? Okay, can you tell me how you would actually answer? And then I get a couple of kids to just verbally tell me the responses. You can get peers to grade them, then you can give your own comments. And then after you discuss it and we go through like the actual responses and all that, then you can get them to see the differences. Like, do you see now how we can actually beef up your response? So it gets them to kind of like have the enlightenment, like, oh wow, like now this actually helps, that kind of thing. Okay? After that, I will go to Q1. So for Q1, you can draw a little table and then get the kids to just tell the differences between a live performance and a virtual performance. Okay, so here I have some points, all right? Actually, if you notice, some of these points are also taken from the answer key. So the reason is also to kind of like bridge. Yeah, help them to build their responses later on. For the virtual performance, right, I'm not sure if anyone here is into plays, but during COVID, if you remember, Andrew Lloyd Webber's plays were online, right? So anyway, there's actually, the website is still available. If you Google just the shows must go on, okay, there's actually an article that talks about it, all right, like this one by Time Out. And if you go into YouTube, what you can do in class is just to play any scene, right? Because they're actually watching a virtual performance in class, right? So get them to watch any scene and then like maybe can talk about like maybe let's say the Phantom of the Opera and then ask them like, how did you feel? So did you enjoy it? And I mean, if kids don't enjoy plays, then right, that's one. So that's something you can talk about. So imagine you're in a concert with people who do not enjoy the same thing as you. So what would the atmosphere be like? Yeah, so just to get them to talk about it. Once this is done, then we will go into the answering of the question. Okay, so we'll go through the P structure, explain to them that elaboration and anecdotes, right? You can have more than one. Okay, so it's always point, elaboration, followed by anecdote, then another elaboration, anecdote, that kind of thing. So for this one, I think it'll be good to either demo or work together with the students, okay, because it's the first lesson with the P structure. So you can see, like, you know, in terms of teaching kids how to abbreviate, all right, it doesn't always have to be words or just short form. It can even be like drawing. So like sight, you use I, and then for, okay. And then something else I would like kids to add in is even like the Charlie Chaplin quote. So I actually like wrote that down. So just to teach them like variations in terms of abbreviations or whatever it is. Okay, so here the person wrote like replicate and cancel it out, but you can also put a cross like an X, and then so it means like virtual cannot replicate that. So I've actually added in some things. Here for the anecdote part, you can get kids to add their own personal experiences if they do have. If not, you can just give them the example from the answer key. Right, so like JJ Lin, I think there was a virtual performance too, right? So if, you know, kids actually have experienced that as well. So I think this part, self-explanatory. Okay, then after that, Q3. Okay, so Q3, it's some people believe that studying art at school is a waste of time. What do you think? Okay, so for Q3, right, actually, I would just like to show them this part here. If you all remember, this was an article from the Straits Times where people were surveyed, and apparently this annoyed a lot of artists, okay? So you can just get them to like think about what is Singaporeans' perception of artists. And then here you can see it's like a picture of a painter. So I don't know whether maybe the people who were surveyed were like, oh, artist, art. Okay, like drawing, how would they help me during COVID? So I think this can be something that you can start off with just to get the ball rolling. Then after that, what I would actually like to do is have a little debate. Depending on class size, you know, whether you, maybe just two groups, okay, one for, one against. So here is just to get them to think about how they feel, right? Do they believe that studying art at school is actually a waste of time? And then if they are for it, what would they say if they're against it? Then gather points. Okay, so those points can actually eventually be used to build their response. So after that, okay, then you just go through key points with students. I've highlighted them in the spoken response here, okay. And then I would like them to actually try the planned response on their own for this one. Okay, so after you have gone through the key points, get them to attempt the planned response on their own. Okay, then you can just walk around, guide them, and then after that, just go through with the class, whether it's the answer key or whether you want to, you know, maybe get a couple of kids to present, the ones who did well. Okay, that one I leave it to you. Okay, so that's for Q3. Any questions so far? All good? Okay. Okay, so the last question will be question 2. Sorry. Okay. So for question 2, like I mentioned, kids can actually just skim through or look through pages 9 to 14 and to look for points that can be used to answer question 2. Okay, so I've highlighted some of them, okay, it will be in the prep. Okay, then after that, once they have gathered their responses, or rather highlighted the points, okay, so they are supposed to use those points to kind of like beef up their response. Okay, so for this one, just a couple of questions to ask the kids, what are some public performances that they are aware of, all right? In terms of society, right? Because bringing no benefit to society, okay? So we're talking about Singapore. So what you can ask them is, do you know of any local plays? And what are they actually about? Okay, so why is because in the answer key, they talk about two plays, Fried Rice Musical and the LKY Musical. So if they don't know, you can actually talk about them as well in your class. Okay, you can just Google any posters and then just, so ask them like, LKY Musical, what do you think it's about? So actually, it does kind of like benefit society because it makes you more aware of certain things. Okay, so that will be for Q3, and then the planned response you can work through with the students. If there's no time, then this will probably have to be done as homework, or you can go through the answer key. Yeah, so this is pretty much it. After all that, before you dismiss them, you can actually do this page, the additional oral questions. Okay, so that's pretty much the flow. Any questions? No? Okay, great, I'm done.